Our last session for today is a panel with some of Africa's best media entrepreneurs. This panel session is hosted by Elizabeth Musa, a broadcast journalist who has extensive working experience managing radio and television projects. Elizabeth is a video content lead at Business Day Media and has served as a television producer and presenter for 5 years, producing Breakfast Channel, a variety morning show which focuses on topical issues from across the African continent on News Central Television. Speaking on this panel are the following speakers: Akah Nnani, Tomiwa Aladekomo, Diana Childs, Justin Norman, and Jennifer Imion. Akah Nnani is a Nigerian-born actor, YouTuber, content creator, producer, and TV host who began his entertainment career in 2014. He has been nominated for the Future Awards Africa and the African Movie Academy Awards for his roles in Nollywood films. Akah gained critical acclaim for his lead performance in Netflix The Man of God and co-produced the hit show Shade Corner on Accelerate TV. He has also received the YouTube Black Voices Awards in 2021. Akah dreams of working in Nollywood and creating global successful productions. Tomiwa Aladekomo is the Chief Executive Officer at Big Cabal Media, a leading African digital media company based out of Nigeria. At Big Cabal, Tomiwa leads the growth of Tech Cabal and Zikoko, two of the most prominent online platforms for technology and youth-focused content in the country. He is building the next generation of African media brands and developing compelling original content that capture the essence of African stories. Diana Childs is an actor, writer, and CEO of DC Productions, producing films like Flaws, Mirrors, and Dinner Is Served. With a master's degree in marketing and a background in banking, she brings diverse experience to the film industry. Her film Flaws gained international recognition with multiple awards and nominations. Diana is currently working on 143, a romantic drama set to premiere in Nigerian cinemas in 2024. Justin is the founder of The Flip, an African-focused media business telling stories about change makers across the continent. In 2017, Justin quit his job in the sports and entertainment industry and moved to South Africa. After spending some time in the startup ecosystem, he quickly learned that his Western lens was not appropriate or applicable to the dynamics on the ground. When he struggled to find the in-depth content he was looking for, he decided to create it for himself, launching The Flip in 2019. Jennifer Imion is a creative business leader with over 8 years of experience in people management and creating innovative business solutions. She leads daily operations and hiring at Mavin Global, the parent company of Don Jazzy's Mavin Records. Passionate about inclusivity and growth, Imion boasts a stellar professional portfolio and stays invested in human capital development, skill acquisition, youth and community-focused enterprises, and gender equality in the workplace. So, I can't wait for you to hear from these amazing speakers. So let's dive in.
Hello everyone, welcome to the final session of the Digital Creator Summit by Selar. This panel is focused on the power of representation with the importance of telling African stories. I must say that the past 2 days have been very brilliant, remarkable sessions, but we're going to be wrapping it up with what I would say is the best. We saved the best for the last. So for this panel session, first of all, why is it important for Africans to tell their stories? And why is it powerful when we do? I, for one, believe that if we do not tell our own stories, someone else will have to tell it for us. But we need seats for diverse African groups at the table, because it's only when this happens that we'll be able to hear different voices and our own ideas being shared on the global stage. Our panelists today are brilliant. They have lived experiences from the global stage, and I'm looking forward to hearing their perspectives on this panel today. I'm sure it will be very exciting, and I know that you all are ready for this. So you all have their introductions. They've been read to us. I do not need to introduce them anymore. But my name is Elizabeth Musa, and I'm going to be your host for this panel session. And I'm looking forward to speaking with my panelists. So I'm going to be bringing them in straight away because all the introductions have been done. I hope that you've been having an amazing day so far, wherever it is you are. If you are in Nigeria, Kenya, Cameroon, Sierra Leone, South Africa, United States, UK, I say good day to you. So my panelists are here. I have on my panel, once again, I'm just going to be introducing them. They've all been introduced. I see Jennifer. Jennifer, welcome. Good to see you. I see Diana as well. Good to see you all. Hope you've been having an amazing day so far. Justin, hi Justin. Good to see you. Hi Akah. Good to see you as well. So it's just Tomiwa that's not here currently. So the introductions have been done. First of all, you all have platforms that you use to tell African stories, whether it's Tomiwa, who runs Big Cabal, which has been dubbed Nigeria's BuzzFeed, bringing with fresh content for the younger generation, or is it Justin telling stories of progress across Africa, or Jennifer running operations in, Mavin's Records, which can be called one of the biggest record labels on the continent, or Akah TV, actor, content creation, all of that, bagging awards as well. Or Diana Ajayi with, being an award. I'm sorry, my eyes, something, I don't know. Or is it Diana doing all that she does, being an award-winning writer with movies that made it to global stage with multiple nominations and all of that? One thing is similar to all of you. You're representing the continent, you're telling the stories, like I like to say, but I would like to ask you, because our panel today is focused on the power of representation, right? The power of representation and the importance of telling African stories. So for you, why did you start what you do? And what does this session mean to you? What's the power of representation? What's the importance of telling African stories in the line that you work currently? I think it's safe for me to start with Akah. Akah, Akah is smiling like, why did you have to put me on the spot? I think you need to unmute your mic, please.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Oh,
we
awesome,
can.
awesome. Hi, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, Elizabeth, thanks for asking the question. So for me, when you're talking about like the power of representation, I think that it's very important for people to see themselves. But I also think that representation allows for authenticity, um, and of course the politically correct word diversity. But I think that it's very important for diversity and representation because people need to see themselves to believe that they can do something or achieve something. And for me, it's very important for me to feel that what I'm doing matters or means something to me. I'm sorry, I have a child in the house. My baby is running up
That's
and down.
fine.
So if you hear any noises, my little girl is
That's fine. It's
yeah.
representation.
So yes, she's being represented here. So it's very important that the world gets to see different parts of itself. And people always say that a certain group of people or a particular country like the USA, oh, they call them. They always say that the redheads are all illiterate, and they always feel like, oh, they're the only ones in the world, or whatever happens there is the standard in the universe. It's a universal standard, but it's only because they haven't been exposed to diversity. And literally, we run the danger of like Chimamanda says, the one narrative, the singular narrative. And I think that when a child is growing up, um, when a man is looking for how to find his footing in the world, he needs to see stories, he needs to see films, he needs to hear stories, he needs to hear success stories that represent him. He doesn't need to see, of course, yes, we all human beings, and seeing a human being, whether white or red or brown, succeeding can touch your life. But it hits home more when you see someone who came from the same background, especially because people have different, factors. A lot of people have or are struggling with things like, imposter syndrome or low self-esteem. But when they see that someone who came from the same background as mine, who comes from the same hood, who maybe even came from a worse situation, is making it, then there's nothing stopping, women need to see themselves taking powerful positions in films or through film, using film as a window, music. And I think that is very important also, even in the business space or in finance, and yeah, it's very important for us for representation to be part
Mm.
of, our journeys in life.
Okay, thank you, Akah. So I'll bring Jennifer. I mean, this question is for all of you to answer. Jennifer, in the line of what you do as the director of operations at Mavin's, one of the continent's biggest record labels, what for you is the power of representation? What's the importance of telling African stories with all of these artists in the forefront, Rema, Ira Star, all of them? What is it? What does this mean for you?
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for inviting me. I would first start with a statement you made when we are about to start. You said if we don't tell our stories, someone else will tell it for us. So I would say the key word for me that stands out for me is just challenging stereotypes. It's easy for people to just label Africans as maybe underdeveloped, filled with conflict, not as creative, but I'm glad that we are able to tell our own stories. People like Rema telling stories about Benin City, even making the mask and all of that. It just shows that we are from a rich continent and our stories need to be told. Like Akah has also said that so that it is relatable, so that someone can also see and say, oh, yes, this person was able to do that. He came from Benin City and was able to go from point A to point B. So that gives me hope to be able to do likewise. It's really important because we have such a diverse and rich culture that needs to be told. So it's really, really important to pass this story across, not just for us, even the generation coming behind us. They need to have blueprints. They have to have something that they can look at and now say, oh, you know what, since my people did it like this back in the day, I will do it better, like by doing XYZ. In summary, challenging stereotypes that we already have in Africa.
Right,
Basically.
right. I'm sorry if I may jump in.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that as she was speaking, it just, clicked that, reason why we need, representation and why it's very important is because it's a check and balance. It's a check to misrepresentation. Because, I mean, you don't want to be represented, so you have to be in the room. You have to be the one who says, this is who we are. Because if someone else tells the story, they have the right to make history, their story, not yours. So I think that is very important for us to be represented and for representation to happen so that everyone can tell the real true story, basically.
So that brings me to Justin, because I'm sure Justin is like, oh, so if we don't tell our story, someone else has to tell the story. But Justin came, is an expert, is living in South Africa, telling stories of progress on the continent, and telling our stories for us. Justin, tell us, why are you doing what you do? What's the power of representation in what you do?
Yeah, I guess I'm technically someone else, but I try to tell, good and representative stories from across the continent. I have had the privilege to live and work across Africa for nearly a decade now, and I think when I first got here, I sort of learned very fast that a lot of the stories that I was told, in the U.S. about the continent are not true, and I saw very clearly that they weren't true, and I was eager to learn for myself, from a business and tech perspective in particular, what was really happening. So I started the Flip in 2019. From a representation perspective, we started as an audio only show because it was really important to me that the insights that were shared were in the voice of the people who were doing the work. So it wasn't me, but it was the people who were the experts and who were solving problems from a business perspective and entrepreneurship perspective, who were telling their stories. And, it was just us providing a platform for them to tell their stories. We've since grown. We're telling a lot of, we're producing a lot of documentary style stories now. And I think it's increasingly important that if we want people to understand what's happening, we need to show them and not just tell them as well. So that visual aspect of storytelling, for me at least, has become really, really crucial and really critical. And my perspective, I watch a lot of Africa-focused stories, and you can kind of picture a template in your head from BBC or CNN or whatever that has, kind of the bongo music, drum music bed, and the aerial shot of, the traffic in Lagos, and then the jump cut to the, to somebody standing, in a market or whatever. And, I think that, it is very clear to me, at least, that, there's a tendency to sort of give African stories the same sort of stereotypical treatment. And it's obviously, we all agree, is much more diverse and dynamic than that. And so for me, I'm just interested in kind of taking global best practices from a storytelling perspective and telling stories as I see them. And I travel around a lot and spend a lot of time in Nigeria on the ground, trying to tell better stories and to treat, these subjects seriously and not just sort of stereotypically or derivatively. So for me, at least, as somebody who's been welcomed to the continent, I think that there's always really interesting things happening and better stories to tell. And I'm really honored and privileged to be accepted and to be able to tell stories with everyone else as well.
Absolutely. You're welcome to tell our stories. Keep telling them. You're doing amazing. Diana, this is for you. You have the floor now. I mean, doing all of the things that you do, writing. Obviously, I know that you're making sure that in your writing, in the movies that you're creating, you are trying to put the proper narrative for African stories out there. So what was it for you? Why did you decide to start what you're doing? And what is the power of representation in it? You need to unmute, please. Thank you.
I pulled the Akah there. But yeah, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. I think everyone has said a lot of great things and said a lot of points that I would have raised. But probably I'll just approach it from the point of view of somebody who lives in England. I think telling African stories and watching these stories also, because here you see a lot of Nigerians. I'm Nigerian, so I'll speak from the point of view of a Nigerian. You see a lot of Nigerians that say things like, I don't watch Nollywood. And I say, probably you should, because you will learn a lot of things. Because our way of life here is not the only way of life in the world. There's so many other cultures, so many other ways of expression, so many other ways people run marriages and other societal issues, whatnot. So I think that's very important that we tell those stories, so that from the point of view of someone who doesn't live in Africa, you can see people that look like you, that sound like you, that you can see some of you in them, and it's also helpful for the children that are here, because a lot of parents that probably were born here that don't really know the culture to kind of like, train their children with or teach their children about. Watching these films exposes you to all these kind of things. Like even me, I've learned, because I wasn't raised in a very traditional way, I must say. My parents were quite westernized. But through watching a lot of Nigerian films, I've learned a lot about so many things about our culture. Like this film I watched, Afamifuna, and I learned about, the whole, apprenticeship and how it works, in the Igbo community. And I learned that through a film. There's another film I watched, I can't remember the name right now, but I know it was about bride price. And I learned about the nuances that comes with bride price, and that is me as a Nigerian learning these things. And I think it's important that we tell this story so that people can learn about our culture, because many times we spend a lot of our time learning about other people's culture, and we want to sound like Americans. We want to sound British. We want to dress, in a Western way. And we should know about our food, the kind of food we eat. We eat with our hands, we do all these things. And so people can also love our culture and embrace our culture and be pleasantly surprised about what they've been missing out on. So I think for me, that's why it's so important. And in terms of my stories and how I try, I'm a writer that tries to tell stories that are very close to non-fiction as possible. I like to tell stories that are very, very relatable, that everybody can see a piece of themselves in the character. So that's the kind of storytelling that I tell. And I say the beauty about telling such stories is that without even trying, you challenge a stereotype. Because when you tell the truth, you will challenge a stereotype. Because the truth is bigger than any preconceived notion or whatever people have about us as Nigerians and Africans at large. So yeah, that's for this. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Diana. So, I mean, for you, Akah, you as an actor, how do you approach this responsibility, this huge responsibility that we have to tell African stories? How do you approach it? Do you tend to pick the kind of movies you act? I mean, when you portrayed in Fela in Man of God, it was so good. So do you pick the kind of movies you act because you have to tell these African stories? And what is the legacy that you hope to achieve at the end of the day as an actor and entertainer and all of that?
As an actor, though, I must say that we are a little bit removed from the story making process. I want to say a little bit. We are removed to be quite removed from the story making process. Um, we rather, yeah, story making. We make the film. We're part of making the film, but not the story. But I try as much as possible to influence the story, especially before I accept a job. I ask questions upon questions to check the validity and the objective of each scene, and speaking with the director to make sure that it makes sense to me first before they even make, and then make sense to my character, and then how that will also translate to the audience. But if you watch my career, and if you will notice that I'm not one of those actors that hops on everything, and I'm not everywhere. First of all, because it wasn't just my business model. I didn't want to be oversaturated. I also thought that, it would be a good thing for me to do, which is pick quality over quantity, because, that's mostly the business model that, uh, that is available here. And I understand that is also because of the economic power of, our industry. Basically, people want to earn a living, and they earn more money when they do more films. But I had to look for alternatives to see how I could also earn money in other ways, so that I can stay true to who I really am and what I wanted to do. So quality over quantity was very important for me. And when I say quality, it's the quality of production, but quality of stories too. Um, and thankfully, most of the films that have come my way, and the character interpretations that I bring to the forefront, to the table, have been, nothing but, of global standards. And that's what I've always tried to do. In my own way, what I bring to the table and what I try to do in making authentic stories is make sure that I do my job properly and do my job well. So whatever character I'm bringing, I have crystallized this character so well that when they see this character, look, icing on the cake when the film is an amazing film. But apart from the film, if the film is melting, let it melt. But you see that character, it must make it. Like, people are going to scream and talk and shout and be like, if not for this character, this film will no work. But also thank God for films like The Man of God that, help even, like, everything just makes sense. That character had 4 arcs, and the film itself will tell a good story that people could relate with. And I think that one of the things we do is make people see themselves even in the films we make as a character. Let people see themselves. Let people say, I know someone like this. I know our neighbor we did backyard. Now then they act. And it's silly if we try to act like we are, who we are not. You can't do Oyibo pass Oyibo. We have to be who we are. And I think that that's one of the things that old Nollywood knew how to do. They knew how to show who we were, but they just needed to have structure. Now we have structure small. We can't the same way we do Oyibo. So I think that we need to get to that place where we are true to who we are. We have to be comfortable in ourselves, and we have to find our identity in storytelling. And I think that that's something that music industry, Jennifer is here, the music industry have done it so well. They know who, they are not shy of who they are. If they're going to do bangolo, 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 bangolo on a song, and they are sure, say this song will blow. Oyibo, the truth is, the same Dr. Dre and Ludacris that did all the mad lyrics and were like, oh my God, this guy lyrics, the boss brain is so intelligent. They are the same people that will play the bangolo, bangolo, and they'll be rocking. So we just need to be true to who we are in whatever we do, the stories we tell, whatever platforms that we use, we have to be true to who we are. So that's what I think that, I bring to the table. I've been very, very intentional about the stories that I do, of course, but also the work that I also give, the quality of work that I bring to the table is true to who I am and true to, the stories that we tell, basically. So yeah.
Thank you, Akah, for just being very open. I mean, you said something that stuck out for me. You said the music guys, if they believe that this thing will blow, even if it's man, they will do it. And somehow, yes, and that's really what's happening. I see the intentionality when musicians are doing what they do. And to be honest, now Nollywood also, there's a difference. We've come a long way. So you guys are actually doing the thing as creators. So kudos to you. So my next question is for Justin. Justin, I mean, you came and you saw, I could say, a gap, and you decided to fill it. What for you is, why have you stayed? What are some of the success stories that have made you stay on the continent? And also, what are some of the challenges that you've experienced, especially with the flip? There might have been challenges that you face, and because this is also like a creator community, some people also want to create like this. What are some of the challenges that you face, and how have you been able to surmount them, and how would you advise creators, to go about it?
Yeah, I think there are endless and nonstop challenges. It's very, very hard to build media business. I see Tomiwa's here. We've talked about this a lot over the years. It is very hard.
You're welcome, Tomiwa.
Thank you. Apologies for being late. I hope I can still contribute a little bit. Hi, Justin. Hello, everyone.
Hello. Yeah, I think, to answer the question about why I've stayed, I think it's, well, on the one hand, my wife is South African, so I'm committed to the continent, whether I want to or not at this point. But, beyond that, I think that there are just really good stories to tell continually. There's more stories that I want to tell, and I'm going to continue to do that. I think in terms of advice for creators, it's, twofold. One is, figure out what is uniquely your stories to tell. I think I've done that in terms of my exploration of the continent and the ecosystem. If it's something that interests you and is something you're passionate about, you should continue to do it. But obviously figure out a business model. That's something that is really hard, especially in this context where, I tend to focus primarily on the tech ecosystem, where especially of late, there's not as much budget and money for supporting productions and things like that. But, go find who's going to pay you to produce the content that you want to create. It may or it may not be in Nigeria. It may likely be outside of Nigeria. But if you, feel enthusiastic about what you want to create and the stories you want to tell, I think that is an important first step in the process, is making sure that enthusiasm and passion comes through in the stories that you're telling. Because I think now with the barriers to telling stories lower than ever before, I think a lot of people are telling so there's a lot of mimicry and mimesis, but if you have unique stories to tell, that is an important place to start from, in my opinion.
All right. Thank you, Justin. So Tomiwa, once again, welcome. When we started at the start of the session, I've spoken about how, Big Cabal is doing all of this amazing stuff, young content, fresh perspective. When you came in, it changed the game sort of in the space. Some people call it Nigeria's BuzzFeed. So what for you how do you make sure in your role that you bring underrepresented stories to the fore? How do you make sure that you're continuously telling these African stories from an African perspective, keeping them fresh, keeping people wanting more? How do you do that?
I mean, so finding the right talent is really critical. I think also having the right framework in terms of what it is that you're trying to do. So, I mean, from jump, I didn't found Big Cabal. I joined it, and when I joined it, there were already two brands. There was Tech Cabal, there was Zikoko, and both of them had a perspective. Tech Cabal started out covering sort of the tech ecosystem. I always say it's not even in Lagos, in Yaba, and over time we've broadened to cover the tech ecosystem across the continent. And so I think a really critical thing is defining what's important to you from jump and what's important to your publication or your business. And so Tech Cabal wants to be the best sort of publication covering the business and the impact of tech in Africa. Our work is different, but supplemental to the work someone like Justin does. He goes into a level of depth that we don't always do. And it's can frequently be more long form or documentary in its approach. Whereas we want to catch the news on a daily basis. We want to catch everything that's happening and everything that matters. We are probably the most important sort of chronicler of what's happening in tech in Africa. Zikoko aims to tell the stories of young people. And we've been clear that we want to tell stories other people want to capture. We've been clear that we want to be closer to young people than the majority of the competition. And so to speak more honestly about what it is like to be young in Nigeria than a lot of publication. And so how do we keep that fresh? I mean, I sit on the business side. I think I wrote one story for Tech Cabal, and Bankole, who was our editor-in-chief at the time, killed it. And I've never gone back to write another story for Tech Cabal. And I've never written anything for Zikoko. I think I've done some video content or whatever it is. But what it then means is that I need editorial teams that are super capable, that understand the mission. We need talented writers and video people and editors. But all of them are working in service of a very clear mission. And I think that a thing that a lot of publications and creators don't do clearly is define what the objective is and hew rigorously to that objective. And like Tech Cabal and Zikoko will go off track sometimes, and we'll have challenges kind of meeting our objectives. But those objectives are super clear for everybody in the business and even for our audience. And so when it's not working, internally, it's very clear to us that it's not working, and we need to get back to the place that we want to be. And sometimes it's finding new talent because we've lost people, because keeping talent is extremely difficult in this market. Sometimes it's a commercial problem, is we're not making enough money to fund the kind of projects it is that we want to do. Sometimes the market's changed and you have to evolve with the market. So for instance, when Zikoko started, Zikoko was a BuzzFeed Me Too. It was listicles and quizzes. That's what BuzzFeed was. By the time I joined in 2018, BuzzFeed had moved past listicles and quizzes. They had BuzzFeed News, and we had to reinvent Zikoko altogether. And so the stories and the publication that most people think of as Zikoko today was really dramatically reinvented in 2019 and 2020. And as we're making our plans for 2025, there's probably another big revamp going to happen because, yeah, we're telling stories. Yeah, we're happy with the impact of some of that stuff. But in our mind, the market shifted again. And what would allow us to tell the stories of young people in as meaningful a way as we would like to is different today than it was in 2021 or 2022 or 2023. So as we're going into next year, there's definitely a lot of thinking about, well, how do we refresh this work and make sure that it's vital and it's energetic? So, I mean, there's a constant reinvention. I mean, you can't ever get comfortable. And what you did yesterday, especially if you are doing the kind of content creation that we do, what you did yesterday is never that exciting for the audience. Is what have you done for me lately? So what are you doing today? What are you going to do tomorrow? That's going to capture attention and imagination and going to tell a story that is important, the story that's important to them tomorrow, because the stories from 2021 may still have some relevance, but I mean, Nigeria's changed dramatically between then and now. Nigeria's changed dramatically over the course of this year. Africa has changed dramatically over the course of this year, and so the way you tell stories have to change with it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, obviously the way you tell the stories have to change with it. I just like how you wrapped it up. So for you, Jennifer, you've worked in the West. You came into Nigeria doing what you do. There are people who work, in the front of the camera, but you are doing operations and you're excelling at it in a space like ours. What's your advice for people who want to work their way up? What are some of the things that have helped you come this far, and how can young creators also learn from you?
All right. First things first, I would say network extensively. I've realized that in the entertainment business is really about your network. We have a roster of talent is because we network. We were talking to someone, we met someone that knew someone that said, "Oh, you can trust these guys." We closed out a multi-million dollars deal with a global company like UMG. It's because someone knew someone that said, "Oh, have a look at this." So I would very much say take advantage of those networking events. I mean, before you go out for those networking events, you have to also sit down and ask yourself, what's my own objective when I'm going for this thing? What do I plan to achieve? I want to meet 3 execs, or I want to meet 2 junior people or entry level in XYZ company, because that's where I see myself going into. I think that's very important. Another important skill I would recommend is being resourceful. I feel like I'm the go-to person at my office, and that is because I have grown how to be resourceful. I found a way to know something or know someone or be able to point people in the right direction. Effective communication is very, very key on project management, because literally every story you're telling, every content you want to shoot, every film or TV, it's really about managing projects from end to end. So definitely you need to just hone your skills in that. Those are the 4 things I would say are crucial, especially if you enjoy being behind the cameras and just working your way up to the top.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. I like something that you said that really stuck out for me is the importance of making sure that your network is extensive. I personally have seen how much impact this has on daily work that we do, because in the work that we do, you need to always reach out to people. You need to always get things done, and then if you don't have this network, it might just be a challenge. So for you, Diana, you are writing all of this stories for the screen. What are some of the times that you probably have written something that challenged a stereotype and maybe was not received as well as you wanted it? Have you ever had any time as that?
Honestly, no. To be very honest.
Wow.
I'm just going to be honest.
But
I'm not going to lie. Like I said before, I try to write as close to nonfiction as possible. I write stories that are true. I write stories that are very, very relatable. That is the style of writing that I've been doing. I've been writing since I was 10, and I sold my first script at the age of 15. So I've been writing for a long, long time, and my stories are consistently the same kind of pattern. It's always about stories that have to do with everyday people, everyday experiences. So maybe there have been responses that were not favorable. Frankly, I don't.
You don't have any.
It's not my problem. So maybe that's why I'm just naive and just oblivious to it, because I feel like if I've told the story that I know is true, even if it's not, now we have your truth and my truth, but there's the truth. But even if you feel like, oh, this is not the true, whatever, as long as I am comfortable that this story, I know somebody that this experience has happened to, I'm very comfortable with that. So I can tell you of times where I've written stories that have, should I say, challenged stereotypes, but I won't say it has received a negative experience and negative feedback. So I have a film called Flaws that's shown on Prime. You should check it out. And when it's was screened at some premiere and some festivals, screened at some festivals and also hit Prime, the consistent feedback I got, was that, and the funny thing is that when I was writing Flaws and when we made Flaws, this was not my intention. My intention wasn't to challenge any stereotype. My intention was just to write a story that I believed was true. The feedback that I got was, oh, thank you for showing a Nigerian man, an African man, a black man from a vulnerable point of view, from a space where he is in touch with his emotions, a space where he speaks on mental health, a space where he's a good, believe it or not, a good husband that is loyal. I got this feedback a lot. And that showed me that there is a stereotype over Nigerian men and black men. Because I live in England, and that stereotype is also in England against black men, that they're not good, they're absent fathers, they're not loyal husbands. But this story wasn't about that. It showed a good man who was vulnerable and in touch with his emotions, was a good husband. And that was the feedback I kept getting. And it showed that if you create a safe space for black men, for Nigerian men to speak, you'll be shocked how emotional they are. And that's what I got from that story. So for me, in a way, that kind of challenged the stereotype, despite the fact that that was not my intention. I was just telling a story that I know was true. So that's my answer to that.
And it actually did challenge the stereotype. So
yeah,
even if you didn't really go about that, but it did achieve that. It achieved that for you.
Yes.
Thank you, Diana. So for you, Akah, you had mentioned earlier that you choose it. You don't want to be everywhere. You choose the kind of movies. You make sure that you go through your script and understand what it is that you want to do. You're not just wanting to be everywhere. But then again, I'm also thinking about someone who is like, I understand that there's a role of collaboration in all of these things that we do. And somehow you don't want to be everywhere, but you also understand that you need to collaborate. You need to, that's like one of the ways that you might find yourself, a step further. So how does a young creator draw the line between collaboration and also knowing that you cannot be everywhere? You need to really be, you really need to be, represent a brand or represent stories that actually portray the values it is that you have. So how do you draw the line between not being everywhere and understanding that you need to collaborate to succeed as a creator on the continent?
I don't think there's any line to be drawn. I think that deciding not to be everywhere is optional. I'm not saying it's right. I mean, there are people who decide that, look, every film I'm going to be there. That's a business model that works for them. For me, it's being selective. Whether it's working for me or not, that's up to me. But when it comes to collaboration, that is an essential part of being an artist. It is a must. You have to collaborate. There's no line to be drawn. You're not drawing any. You're jumping inside the line because artists, essentially working with other people. You cannot make films without collaborating with other people. So you have to learn how to form and forge relationships, how to work with people, how to have good conflict resolution, how to make negotiations and close deals, how to make everybody feel like they won while you also feel like you won. Whether as an actor, a writer, a visual artist, a musician, you're collaborating. Music artists collaborate with all sorts of people. Look at Jennifer. She's back end doing all the admin work and doing operations, but she's working and collaborating with Rema, who is out there doing, make a ton, make a pong. So you have to collaborate with people. It's part of the business. It is part of the deal. I think that anybody who wants to come into the business, thinking that, they want to do it alone or be an island, I think that they are dreaming. And if you think that you want to, also be the kind of person who, when I say cheats people or, you want to use people as a ladder and step on people, you're going to be found out sooner than later, and people are just not going to work with you, So I think it's very important for people to have that on lockdown, apart from even your particular industries collaborate with every other industries, especially in the arts. I mean, as an actor, as a creative, Rema, myself, Kuli Remy, None of us can say we want to be a star without collaborating with the fashion industry. We are musicians, we are actors, we are this, but we'll collaborate with another industry. In the arts, collaboration is essential. You cannot do anything without a writer writing for you. See Zikoko here, or more, if they do critique on your film and enter, see,
Oh
make you
my
just
God.
hardly go and be friends with them. Collaborate and forge good relationships with people, with industries around. I mean, you can't be a global star. You can't get attention without wearing fine clothes. And you can't also be a good, fashion, creator without having artists that people respect and have influence wearing your clothes. It's give and take in this industry, So yeah.
So there's a second part to my question. As an actor, do you think that there are enough seats at the table for at the global table for actors, Nigerian actors, or do you think that as it is, so there've been arguments of people saying that no, we're not looking for seats. I think what we're trying to do is make sure that what we're doing is very well presentable out there. We're not necessarily some of them, but there are people that say no. I'm also trying to move to the Hollywoods and all of that. That so there's two divides. The people that say that, you know what, we need to make sure that what we have here is working and it's good export. Then the people that are saying that yes, it's good, let it be good export, but also we want to be there. So for you, how do you say that we get more people, more seats at the table for actors on the global stage?
Omo. So Jennifer and Diana, una see this Elizabeth they do. She did.
I have thoughts on this, by the way.
I think Tomiwa
Okay, you're gonna jump in. It's fine. So for me, I would say that for saying so, I don't think that we are represented enough. That's a given. We are not represented enough, and so to say that so we need more representation in global in Western films and Western stories because we exist in those worlds. And we need to be represented right, the way we are, the way things really are, But again, I think that this makes me come to the side of ownership. Ownership is very important. And I think that that's something that we as Nigerians and Africans need to start taking seriously, especially when it comes to forming narratives of us. You cannot continue to sell IPs when we are saying we want to be part of the global, or we want to sell stories and be part of the people who are making it big and everything. I appreciate all that and all that adds to the entire scope of things, but we need to have a game plan. What is the plan for our industry? I appreciate what the Ministry of, Culture and, Entertainment is doing. I understand, but we need to see better structure in our policy. We need to see, guilds actually begin to work. We need to have a plan. We need to stop selling IPs like it's hotcake. We can't be selling out IPs to our stories. Our writers have books, and soon, maybe it's happened. Disney will come and start buying all these things for you to make film of your father or forefather's friend. You would then say it's owned by a white conglomerate somewhere. We can't continue doing that. Number two, we need to own platforms. We need to start having our own Netflixes and our own, should I say, Prime videos, because it's just like what's happening in other industries like agriculture. We cannot produce cocoa or produce crude oil, send it to them, they refine, then buy it from us. It's happening in the entertainment industry. That's what it is. So we need to own our platforms and set the bar and standard, because the truth is the world wants to see authentic stories. But again, we have to get it right with storytelling. Our writers have to be of par with other global writers. We have to learn and close the knowledge gap. Our writers need to know what character-driven stories are all about and how to write a good story. We need to know that. But again, adding to that, how do we even take charge of narratives? The world is turning into AI. We don't see how AI is now beginning to, they're training AI to begin to make decisions. If you go on AI now and type a young boy from Surulere, Lagos, Nigeria, you will see the image that a machine creates as the image of a black boy in Nigeria. It is not a robust looking, healthy, well-educated child. That is not the image that a machine is already being, maneuvered to create of us. What are we doing in the AI space? I think that now that AI is forming, let us begin to pump AI with images, narratives, and mirror who we are well enough. Because soon, if tomorrow, this one where we decry, say we are going to the American embassy and we cannot get visa because they were not in the right mood. If AI begins to make decisions for countries and embassies of who and whom should not get visa, who and who cannot enter, or who and who should not get a vaccine, now Africans are going to be losing. So we need to. Diana is laughing because I like to bring three big things and just practicalize it. We need to be ahead of the game. Let's start thinking of ownership. Forget what white people they do. And thank God for people like Justin who are saying, look, we're here, we're trying to, but we need to work together and say, let's start bringing our own forward, doing our own things, telling our stories on our own platforms. Net Prime came, did all the big things, brought money, but they left. Why? Naira is not strong enough for them, but Naira is strong for us. So let's make our platforms and get subscribers to pay in Naira. And we will be growing like that. India and Bollywood does not need Netflix, does not need Hollywood. Why do we? Yeah.
I see the passion. I see the passion in all that you've said. I think Tomiwa wants to add something. Okay, let Tomiwa have this. Then I'm coming to you, Justin.
A couple of some perspectives that build on, I guess, comments and maybe sit a little bit aside from them. So first of all, I don't know that anybody deserves representation, or I kind of am of the school of nothing is given, only what is taken. So if we want global representation, we have to build it. I do agree that we have to be more intentional as we move forward. But if you ask how do we get more global representation, I think just build better projects. A place where I agree with Akah is that the market starts from here. And if you look at what we've built prior to now, look at Nollywood, if you look at our music industry, the first market was always here. It created content, it had purchased locally, our people loved it, and then other markets started to follow. And I think that if we want a global place, then create global standard content. I mean, I was in the US when kind of Latin American cinema really, really blew up. You know, movies like City of God, like really blew up. And again, their first audience was always their own markets. And even when Hollywood kind of moved on, as Hollywood always does, to whatever the next trend was or whatever the next thing is, those are massive markets where they're creating content for themselves on an ongoing basis. South Korea, one of the biggest sort of cultural exporters on a global basis now, whether their music industry, their TV shows, or their movies. Again, they're their own first market. And the thing about that market is that they've created content that's great enough for global consumption. Japan, any market where culture is a big export, manga, anime, all of that stuff, they were their own consumers. And I think we've done a good job in building Nollywood out of nothing, building our music industry out of nothing, not a lot of government support, not a lot of institutional support. I think we've done a fantastic job in creating these industries. What's the next stage? Like I said earlier, you have to constantly be reinventing. And I think, you know, like with Hollywood, you're seeing sort of new Nollywood, and there's, you know, it's much glossier, and, you know, it's the visuals at least look like global standards. You know, our music videos look amazing. But, you know, there's a depth problem. And so the stories aren't as deep. People talk about new Nollywood versus old Nollywood, and the stories were deeper and kind of more truthful in old Nollywood. But I also see a lot more experimentation. I see a lot more young filmmakers creating stuff that's sitting on Prime, you know, sitting wherever it is. I agree with Akah about platforms. I think it is a pity that we haven't built more locally relevant platforms. I think that there have been some. So something like Africa Magic, even Rock TV. I think Iroko's not quite worked, but Africa Magic, love them or hate them, it's a big platform for creating and taking our own content and showing our own content to the continent. And so that's developing your own local market. And I think if we want global representation, it is you do need to do global quality stuff. So the storytelling has to be global quality. Visually, it has to be storytelling. It has to be compelling. And I really think it is about building your own. It's bringing your own seat. So you create work of a quality that nobody can deny. It goes to film festivals and it wins awards, and there are bidding wars over, this content because Netflix wants it and Prime wants it and Universal wants it, because you've built content that has, local themes and local topics and like local actors, but has global resonance and is that global. And if there's something that, sort of is a big sort of mantra of mine, a thing that I beat everybody at the office over the head with is, I don't want to be a local champion. I'm never ever competing to be the best in Surulere or the best in Lagos. If we're going to tell stories, let's tell global quality stories. If we're going to be content creators, let's do work at global standards. And it means that you're studying the work of the people who are doing it at the highest level globally. Why do their films work? How are they able to get ideas on screen in 3 shots rather than 10 minutes of exposition? And so it's just leveling up on a technical level, leveling up on a storytelling capacity, leveling up on an acting perspective, and making sure the work that we do is global quality. And then, whether you distribute it locally, whether you take it to film festivals, whether you take it to, when the work works, it works. I just saw the teaser for Squid Games. Is that it? Squid Games? What is it? The Korean, whatever it is. What is it?
Squid Games.
Yes.
You're right.
And it's like, that was, probably their first global hit on Netflix. But Korean movies have been amazing for over a decade, maybe 2 decades now. And so when we're creating, JSA level work, when we're creating work where just anybody that watches this can say this is global quality. Parasite level work, movies will find global distribution. It will come, or actually, well, it won't come. You got to take it. The second point is your business has to be as good as your creative. Then you will then need business people that will go and make sure it gets sold and that understand marketing and all of that. But let's do the creative work first, and then the business will follow.
Yeah, thank you, Tomiwa. 2 things have stuck out. Firstly, you said if you want a global stage, you should create global standard. And then you talked about the business angle, but we have to do the creative work first, then business comes. And that brings me to Justin. Justin goes around every time, engaging entrepreneurs on the African continent. What for you are some of the lessons that you've learned about building businesses on this African continent?
Thanks, Elizabeth. With respect to the creative economies in particular, actually everything, right? Technology, everything. I think that there's this question about what is the market that you want to service, whether it's domestic or global, right? And I kind of agree with Tomiwa, or I entirely agree with him in terms of, trying to tell global stories and tapping into global opportunities. I think, those who are really pragmatic about where their customers are going to come from and understand the competitive landscape of who they're trying to compete with, right? So there's a lot of this notion of, exporting culture, exporting talent, and, in the tech space, there was Andela and everything else. But if you want to compete on a global scale, you have to really compete on a global scale, right? And so I think about this a lot, like what are each individual African market's comparative advantages, and where are they uniquely positioned to compete, right? And in the case of Nigeria, is it culture and storytelling and everything else? But if it is, what does that mean in terms of the business that you need to build and how the standard of quality and I don't know that I have an answer. I think about it a lot though. I do have to say though, there's a tendency also, I think, to think that nothing is working in the Nigerian context, but like I hear Afrobeats everywhere in the world, in cafes in New York and all of these other places unexpected, right? So things are still happening, right? I think it's a matter of then what do you do with the edge or the advantage or the opportunity that you have, right? And the global market isn't sentimental, right? It's ruthless. So I think those are all lessons for me, right? You might want to service Nigerians, but there's a hard reality about doing business in Naira, right? And to the point before about platforms, we published an episode a couple of years ago on the creative economy, and I remember vividly Jason Njoku from Iroko talking about all of the difficulties of servicing a Nigerian customer in Naira and making a very explicit decision to take his platform and only service customers in the US and the UK, right? So he's hard and he's ruthless and pragmatic, but there are those elements in business that I think are necessary. And those are some of the lessons that can be applied both to, entrepreneurship across the tech space and beyond, and certainly the creator economy as well.
All right. Thanks, Justin. So Jennifer, you work with talent. I mean, even if you're in operations, you work with talent every day. What are some of the mistakes that you see young talent making, young creators making that doesn't set them up for success, and how can they avoid some of these mistakes?
Okay, the first one would be overnight success. We have this issue a lot. You drop your song today, you want 1 billion streams tomorrow. That's not how it works. That's you drop a project today, content, you want 1 billion views. That's not how it works. It's a journey. I think people really need to understand. Some people see some people and be like, oh, that guy, how did he get there? Oh, I admire this guy. Oh, God. But like when he was freestyling in the car, every now and then you never really saw that because maybe you weren't part of the core audience that listened to him and stuck with him throughout his career. Overnight success is definitely one of them. Another one would be having clear brand identity. Today, you want to be a rock star. Tomorrow, you want to dress like a babalao. Next tomorrow, you want to dress like an olokpa. You're making work hard for even me. Because how do I say, oh, this guy can be your brand ambassador for this product when his brand identity is inconsistent? So you definitely have to be consistent as you're putting out content, as you're trying to be adaptable, or you're adapting to how dynamic the industry is in general. I think it's also important that you stay authentic and true to who you are. It doesn't mean you can't change. Like I'll use someone like Rema that has a very strong brand identity. He first started, some of his projects have spanned with different colors. You see red, you see yellow. Yellow will now fade out into red, then red and black. Then this last project was just all black, tiny silvers. It is a deliberate effort because he's crafting a brand. So when he drops a certain project, you see him dress and embody that project. So that's what I would say. Those are like small mistakes that content creators, entertainment rock stars do as well. Just to put it all in a bowl, I would say patience, consistency, learning, sharpening your skills. If you're a video editor or a content production company, I mean, what's the next best way to do this thing that you have done for so long that people love you for? So learning, adapting, understanding what your brand is. That's what I say.
Learning, adapting, building a consistent brand. I think that one really has stuck out for me. So for you, Diana, you've moved up in your work as a writer, building this career. Someone wants to come in they're wondering, how did she do it? You know, many times people, like Jennifer has mentioned, overnight success. Many times what people see as overnight success has been many years in the making. So, but they just see it now. They're like, oh, it just happened yesterday, but it didn't. So, for what's your advice for someone who is trying to build a career in this same film industry that might look like it's tough? You know, it's a creative economy. So, what's your advice? How can they build it? How are you able to do it? And what's your advice for them?
Okay. Firstly, it is tough. Like, it's very tough. I must say that one first. It's very rough on the streets. So previously, I had this mindset. So I'm a writer and I'm also an actor. And I had the mindset that opportunities had to be given to me. So I was really waiting for those opportunities. I'm not going to lie. I sent out so many synopses, self-tapes, all this kind of stuff. And the more no's I was hearing was, it really drained me. It was frustrating. And many times you give up. And because I also have banking background, I've been working in banking for a long time. I have that background of that. I easily just always fell back into my 9 to 5 because that was just safety for me, consistent, you know. And then you kind of give up. So many times I did give up. But if something is your passion, if something is it's just your life, you can't give up. Trust me. At least that's my own experience. So 2 years ago, I just decided that, okay, this was going to be my last try. And I decided to change my mindset and approach it very differently. And then I traveled to Nigeria and I set up my film production company. I decided to approach it from a business point of view and not just from sit down and wait. You know, I said to myself, I want to be part of the conversation and not be the conversation. And what I mean by that is I wanted to be part of the decision makers. I wanted to have those conversations that create opportunities and not be the one that they're sitting in a room and deciding if we should cast Diana, if we should buy Diana's script. No, I'm going to cast myself. I'm going to produce my script and then you must watch it. So that was how I changed my mindset and I approached it that way from a business point of view. And, you know, to God be the glory, between my company will be 2 years by November this year, my company will be 2 years, and I produced 14 films in that time period. I executive produced those films on their own various platforms. And it brings me, I'll backtrack a little bit where I want to speak on when we say to make films that are global standard. So yes, I have, you know, films on international streaming platforms like Prime and whatever, and stuff that are also coming out on other those platforms. But I also have films on Showcase, which is African Magic. I have films on Ibaka TV. You know, the only space I don't really play in is YouTube. I don't play in that space at all. And I want to speak for the little guy there where, you know, those films, those platforms matter. YouTube is a global stage. A lot of consumers of YouTube, Nollywood YouTube, are not based in Africa. They are based here in the diaspora. So YouTube is a massive global stage. And in as much as I'm not playing in that field, I do not underrate or overlook what they are doing. I know we give them a hard time in terms of the quality of the films, the standard of the films. The only thing I say to YouTubers is make films that the story is international standard. Because if your story is international standard, nobody cares if you shot with an iPhone. Because they'll be lost in that story. At least I'm speaking for myself as a creative. Because the fact that we have consumers who give those films 1 million views, 2 million views, 10 million views shows that there is a market for it. That is just fact based on stats. So I wanted to just backtrack and speak on that so that people that are listening don't think, oh, until I get that 200 million naira, I cannot start. You can start. You can make a film and put it on YouTube. Just make sure that your story is fantastic. Make sure that your story touches somebody. People will forget if you shot it with Black Magic or Red or Ari or Sunny. They will be lost in your story. So I just wanted to quickly backtrack and speak on that. For me, the part I took was to approach things from a business point of view and, you know, create opportunities for people, create opportunities for myself, and not just wait to be given those opportunities. But I appreciate that. That is not going to be everybody's path. That is not going to work for everybody because the truth is that not everybody, especially in Nigeria, can have the means. You know, because I have said before, I have a background in banking. So that means that at least I had a 9 to 5 that I could use to fund this. Not everybody has that. So what I would advise is, like I've said with YouTube, start small. Even if you can make a 10-minute short film, make that 10 minutes short film, put it into festivals. There are a lot of festivals that are free. There's some festivals that are $5, $10 here and there. Put it into festivals, network through festivals. You know, if you can attend, you can attend. You attend. If you can attend physically, attend. If not, join the screening through online platforms like this. Like Jennifer said earlier, networking is so important. It's very important that you put yourself out there. And when I mean put yourself out there, I don't mean show off yourself on social media, because I'm not a big social media person, but put yourself out there in terms of attend the events that are relevant to what you're trying to achieve. You can't, just the same way, like if you're looking for a boyfriend and they say you can't find a boyfriend inside your bedroom, you cannot find these opportunities staying in your house. You have to step outside. You have to go to those. I absolutely hate red carpet events, premieres. Oh my God. But I know that I have to attend them. I know that I have to speak to my colleagues. I know that I have to do that. And I do that in as much as I'm dying inside. But you have to do it. You have to attend those festivals. You have to do monologues and put on social media. Go into people's DMs. There are a lot of people have given acting opportunities because they slide into my DMs. Don't be afraid for that. If you get a no, it's not the end of the world. You try somebody again. There'll be one producer that will give you a yes, because there are a lot of young people that I have given a yes, because I understand how the no's were coming to me. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Get that no, bounce back again the next day. And also, like Akah said, collaborations. Oh my God, please collaborate. You know, and going into the industry and making my films and building my own CV by producing my films and showing what I could do with writing and everything. I've been lucky that I've met other EPs and other producers that have been open to collaborating with me. So I've collaborated with the likes of like Bolaji Ogumola, Christina Martin, and many other people that I'm looking forward to working with, Filmboy and etc. And you really have to be open to that. It's very daunting. It's really scary to think, oh my God, I have to compromise on my creativity, and because that's what collaborations are, especially in this space I'm speaking on. You have to do, you write as you sit down, you say, no, I want the man to be standing, no, I want the person to be sitting down. Me personally, I don't even like to discuss anything in my script, like my script is my script, but I had to relax a little bit and know that you have to be open to those collaborations and all those kind of things. So that's what I would advise, you know. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. And I see Akah. Diana said a lot, so it brings me certainly to you. I don't even know, today you are an actor. I mean, every day you're an actor, but you transition between all of these roles: acting, producing, TV hosting, content creation. And then somebody is wondering, how do I even do all of these things? Then there's someone like Akah doing it and doing it seamlessly. What's your advice for someone who wants to take this leap and they're wondering, I don't know how to do it, or like, let me just focus? Like, even the creator said that there are many talents that we have. Like, if you, all of those things inside of you, allow them, express them. But there's also so maybe you're being a jack of all trades. Maybe I can't succeed doing all of these things, but you are doing it and you're succeeding. What's your advice?
Almo, for this.
How you say for every question I ask you?
Yo, I would say that, for someone who wants to explore, different means, I will just say, first of all, you must know who you are, know yourself, and know what your capacities are and capabilities are. Like I said, because I wanted the wherewithal to choose the scripts or have a say in, or some form of control in the kind of scripts that I say yes to. And sometimes, I do it by sometimes lying, oh, I'm not available, so that I don't, get a blanket over my head from producers who, say, are you bigger than us? So I just, but for me to have the wherewithal to do that, I had to see where I could make money some other places. So I had to, revive those dead talents that, I knew were, dormant in me, which were, hosting, whether it's, TV or events. And it took a lot from me because, I mean, when I was growing, I certainly knew that I was a multi-potentialite, but I didn't explore or sharpen all of those talents at the same time. In fact, what I actually sharpened the most and first was music. Everybody thought I was going to be a musician, but I didn't think I had what it took to be a studio rat, because in those days when I was growing up, all I saw was boys going to the studio and begging producers to write for them and write with them and sleep in the studio for 1 week, and they come out and they release a song and it's not a hit, or it's climbing, on, MP3 dot whatever, what it was that time. And then the OAPs are not playing it because you haven't paid them. I was just like, this is bullshit. I ain't doing this. So I was just like, nope, I don't have that. I don't have that form of grit, but I knew who I was. And, so I decided that, what, let me go into something else that felt more organic, which was TV hosting, host a show. And then from there, that helped me to sharpen my, should I say, confidence in front of the camera. And then opportunities like acting later came. And then I began to also hone that talent and scale, and began to, make sure that I sharpened it. And I felt like I fell in love with this thing, with acting. And that was what for me became my number one and my A game, But then I knew the way I wanted to do it. So it made me go back into beginning to, go back into the events hosting. Funny that I used to do MC events, MC weddings. That was hard because, first of all, it's to control and to, take charge of 200 people, 500 people, that energy in the room, and control that. And that was hard. And I didn't have that level of confidence at first. But I sharpened it. And funny enough, to date, it is the biggest money maker for me right now. For some part of my life, I actually ran away from it, because out of all the talents that I do, it's the least comfortable. But I sharpened it, and now it's actually the biggest moneymaker. I do acting for passion and because of love. But yeah, to anybody out there who wants to do this, look, know who you are and make sure that you give your all and your best and do what's authentic to you. If you know that you cannot act, don't say you want to act. Or if you know you don't at least have some form of talent in music, see, and be cool with people telling you the truth. If you can't sing and this, don't force us to hear music that's not sweet. Music that we say we've heard, thank you. You have to have emotional intelligence to know when people are lying to you or not, because they don't want to break your heart. Sometimes they're not lying because they want to be wicked or because they want to lead you on to a path of destruction. They just don't want to be harsh on you. But you must be emotionally intelligent to know that, okay, this reaction, okay, and be secure in who you are, But again, I would say to anyone who feels like they can do more, why not? Jack of all trades, master of none is a lie. You're a human being, you're complex, you are mirrored than the hydra-headed personality. Do everything you can to explore all your talents, explore yourself, explore your dreams, and don't be limited, but stay in the confines of what you can do well. Yeah.
Thank you, Akah. If there's something I heard and heard again, it's you are really focused on staying out of your comfort zone. If you think that you need to do something and sharpening skills, that's something that's really set you apart. I mean, from talking about your acting to emceeing events, commanding rooms of 250 people, 500 people, and all of that. You are sharpening your skills and making sure. But there's something that's also stuck out is where you said you have to know when to stop. Because, and I read it somewhere as well, like sometimes it's a superpower that people don't know. People just think, oh, they say persistence is a thing. But that emotional intelligence, understanding that, okay, maybe this thing is not the thing. This voice, maybe my voice is to be acting, it's an acting voice, not to be singing. But then you're just singing and singing. so that's something that you've said again. Thank you for that, Akah. So for you, Tomiwa, writing stories, being the CEO of Big Cabal Media, it's a very interesting job. How do you maintain the integrity of your stories? And for you, what's one of the projects that you have done at Big Cabal Media that you have very
It is well.
I think I could probably
It
answer.
could be Nepal. You never know. It's Nigeria. It could be Nepal.
It could be.
She's back.
All right, yes. All right, Elizabeth.
Yes, hi.
Elizabeth, let me tell you all the people that were gossiping about you.
Yeah, Nigeria
Like,
happened to you. What happened to you? What happened to your life?
they gossiped about your NEPA, your lights.
Oh my goodness,
Okay.
expected for
So
a
you
dream.
asked, how do we keep the integrity, and what's a project that
You are very proud of. What's one of the projects you've worked on that you're very at Big Cabal
I
Media?
mean, it's always the next project. So at the moment, like the only thing I'm eating, breathing, and drinking Moonshots, which is our conference next month. I'm super excited about that. We've been deep in the programming for it and the planning for it, and I'm like really excited to see that come to life. And we've kind of been really, really thoughtful about creating something that is a useful tech conference that's also like an experience. Like I said about competing on a global platform, on a global basis, like when I benchmark, I'm looking at Ajayi Global, I'm looking at sort of like all the biggest conferences on the continent, and I'm saying, I want to be as good as this. And so excited to see, for the world to see that, and to see how that's received. So Moonshot. How do we keep integrity? Again, I think I come back to like a really first, like a key thing is just defining what it is that you want to accomplish, and then being meticulously dogged about making sure about getting it done. And so we know what we want Tech Cabal to be. We know what we want Gogo to be. We know what we want Big Cabal to be. And whatever the challenges of the market, whatever challenges of talent, whatever the challenges of whatever year it is that we're operating in, that clarity about where we're going, the clarity of our mission statements, the clarity of the people who lead the business about where it is that they're going and what it is that we're trying to get done, means that there's always somebody who's not sleeping because our video content isn't where it needs to be, our editorial isn't where it needs to be, we're not making enough money to accomplish the things that it is that we want to do. I mean, to Akah's point is, you want to tell stories, it's a privilege. You want to make certain kinds of films, it's a privilege. How are you going to fund it? And so like a really big thing is just, if you look at every year we set out our sort of like internal guiding principles, and number one is always the storytelling is the most important thing. Like, editorial matters more than anything, and I will fight with the finance people to make sure we invest in the right talent. I will fight to make sure that we have the resources to tell stories the way we want to tell stories. Number two is be relentlessly commercial, because in order to tell the stories that we want, we need to be making the money that allows us to tell the stories. Big Cabal's 90 people strong. That's 90 people at payroll every month. It's insane. Like, we can't faff around in terms of making sure that we have a business that is growing, that is commercially viable. And so that's an important thing for maintaining integrity, is you got to figure out how to pay for it, and also figure out how to pay for it in ways that your commercialization doesn't affect your ability to tell the right stories, or doesn't affect your ability. So, like, how many times do we tell a story on the Tech Cabal that pisses off a sponsor or an advertiser? And like, do I want to lose my, top sponsor for my newsletter or the top sponsor for our conference? No. But if it's going to impact our ability to tell the truth or editorial integrity, I will lose any and every sponsor. And then means that we've got to have revenue lines that aren't advertising. We have to have revenue lines that aren't dependent on just the people that we cover. And that's tricky. It's difficult, but it's the work. And that's the mission. And so, the commercial strategy also does determine how rigid you can be about your editorial integrity.
Thank you for all that you said, Tomiwa. I mean, one thing that you just said that is ringing in my ear is understanding the fact that at the end of the day, there has to be other source of revenue, and I think that can be very tough in the media space, because most times you're depending on the advertisers, you're depending on all these sponsors and all of that. But I think that's a story for another day that we can't even touch on now. But for you, Justin, what's your advice for Africans, I mean, just looking from your own lens, being here for the years that you've been, what's your advice for Africans to who want to create any, maybe as writer, whatever it is in the creator economy, and how they can succeed creating?
Yeah, I don't think my advice to Africans would be any different to my advice to anyone else in the first case. But you know, one of the things that I was thinking about as Tomiwa was speaking, as it relates to business in particular, is like, I think it's important in the context of the creator economy to remember that it is still a business, right? So I think a lot of creators think, you know, I can just focus on the creative side, but you know, Diana told the story of how she had to hustle her way into rooms and to figure out the business side and things like that. And I think with very, very few exceptions, right? So the creator economy is a power law game, right? So there's going to be the top 1 or 2%. And those are the people who have been able to build an audience and have a team around them and agents and everything like that. But with that being the exception, everyone else is going to need to be as good, if not better, at business than at creating. And I think that is especially true. My only difference in the African context is that would be especially true where there's not sort of an abundance of sponsors or advertisers like there is in other markets.
Okay. I was also going to ask you, I mean, for all of the stories that I've seen, I think one story that the Flip has created that really created so much buzz was the Money Point story. Do you also agree with me?
That was a very fun one. I think in the tech space in particular, people are really interested in Money Point and wanting to understand how they've grown so fast. And so I hit them up and I said, can you take me around? And we went to the market in Lagos and we told the story. And yeah, I think people were interested. Like that's my approach to some extent, is where there's questions or things to be explained or things that I know will be interesting to our audience. Can we go and tell those stories? Again, with global best practices and things like that, right? Like just treating that as any other story like we would in any other market. It just happens to be in Lagos as opposed to anywhere else.
Thank you, Justin. So we are already at 7:30, so I'll just allow every one of you to just give us your pattern shots and then we can close. And thank you all for your time. So Jennifer, I'll start with you.
Sorry, what are we supposed to say at this point? I think I missed you.
Anything. Pattern shots.
I would say be your authentic self and go and excel.
Awesome. Diana.
Don't give up.
Akah. I think we're doing one word.
I would say make sure you try and get better every day. Get better.
Okay, great. Justin.
I don't have advice. I would just say I respect everybody who's trying to build a career in this industry and in a market like Nigeria. It's not easy. And so everyone who's going for it, you have my respect. And the resilience
Thank
thing
you
is
so much.
Give up.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate it.
What was that about? You felt it. You felt it.
In this country.
It touched you.
Oh my God.
Tomiwa.
No, my point is quite similar to Justin's in that I think I have a huge amount of respect for the amount of creative talent that exists in our market. I have a huge appreciation for the resilience. And I think that Nigerians and the creatives here have the capacity to create work as good as anybody else anywhere in the world. It's critical that people learn the business of this, because that business element is really critical to our success. But I'm an optimist about this ecosystem, and I'm an optimist about our creative industry's ability to break through and to be a big driver for the Nigerian and African economy. And so let's keep it going. Let's keep it going, people. We've come really far. And I think Akah mentioned it. Sometimes we're really down on ourselves, like there's nothing good happening in here. But I think we've come really, really far. And we've got our challenges, but there's an opportunity for us to go a lot further. And I really respect the resilience. I really respect the creativity that's brought us thus far. And I don't think that we've come as far as we're going. I think it's a long road and a lot of growth for us.
Truly respect the resilience. And also shout out to you, Tomiwa. I mean, I really enjoy Moonshot. I was there last year and it was really good. So looking forward to this year. The energy and everything. Yeah. Well done. And well done to everybody you all. What?
I said everybody come.
Yes, we certainly. Is it? Oh, okay. Yeah, I came on media business. I don't know if it's free. Is it free?
There's a media fast section of the website.
Yeah. Okay, exactly. All right.
Only if they're media, but yes.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right, thank you to all of you for being here. It was really great talking to you. Thank you so much. And I hope that you continue to live the Pan-African dream as a creator. Thank you very much. And Jennifer, we'll still be needing Don Jazzy one of these days. Just a reminder. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for hosting us. All right.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening ahead, wherever it is you are, evening, afternoon. Thank you. Akah, bye. Diana, bye. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Bye, Lydia.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much, everybody.